I'm holding the American Series Soloist from Jackson Guitars in what I like to call Hulk Smash Green, but I think there might be some copyright issues if they actually tried to call it that. But this is my favorite of the four colors that are available right now. There's just something about this green satin finish that it just pops for me. Love it. And the satin finish on the neck feels great too. It makes a fast neck even faster.
So tell us what you like about the Jackson Soloist in general and the new Soloist in particular, like feature by feature. Can you show us what you like?
I mean, growing up and when I first started playing in the 70s, I was always a Strat guy. That was my favorite shape. And so when I discovered these in the early 80s, I just naturally gravitated towards it because it looked like a Strat, but it had a humbucker in it. Because like as a kid, I would have a Strat, and I'd see Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest with his Strat with humbuckers, and I'd be like, how did he get that? And I'd bring my Strat down to the guitar shop in New York City and say, I want to put humbuckers in mine, like the guy from Judas Priest. And he'd say, yeah, it'll cost you $500 to route it out. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, it's like a custom thing. And so then all of a sudden, these things show up in my life in the early 80s, and they were just built for what there was the right tool at the right time. And these new production models, these USA production models, which first the fact that a company 40 years into doing business and they're like bigger than ever, and the brand's getting bigger than ever, and Fender's really got so much confidence in the brand to actually finally launch a USA production series. For me, it just makes me feel great because obviously I've been a big fan of Jackson Guitars for 40 years. It's very reminiscent of Soloists that I still have from, the mid 80s, except I would say the neck's even faster. Definitely a faster neck. Other than that, really, it's very similar to what I've been used to playing for so long. I know that I could pull one of these right out of the case and literally, well, my tech would never let me do it, but I could literally plug this in and play a show with it without having even, checked it first. I know it's going to absolutely work. And another thing about these guitars, because I had... they gave me the white one a few months ago when they... one of the first ones in, so I could have my hands on it because I had to do some video for it. And first thing I noticed, and it happens with all my favorite guitars, as soon as I started playing it, it makes me feel like I'm a better guitar player than I actually am. There's this cheat, this elevation thing that happens when you pick up, you just feel it and you're like, God, it's so easy to play. And I'm moving around so well on the neck, and it's like, wow, this makes me a better, you actually feel like you're playing better than you did the day before. And that's what these have been doing for me.
Now you're kind of like the Malcolm Young of, thrash metal.
Thank you.
But so it's kind of almost a little irony that you're into the soloist guitar. How does it work for you as a rhythm player mostly?
What do you mean?
Obviously soloists are geared a lot towards people who play.
It's funny, and I know,
above the 14th
and
fret.
exactly, and I know what soloist means, but I always think of it as a different way. I always think of soloist in that it's what's the word I'm looking for? I'm standing here, I'm wearing a guitar, I'm playing, it's a solo gig, it's just me. When I think of soloist, I don't think of this. I just think of me and my guitar, right? That's what I think of. But, look, I've got plenty of these that have one pickup in them and one knob, which is, the minimal thing, much like Malcolm, because that's all I need is a bridge pickup, sometimes a whammy, one volume control. I even had built a few years back, I had a soloist built with no volume control. Just a pickup and on. And hopefully the noise gate does its job. But
it sound even a little clearer.
Yeah, it was great. It's a great sounding guitar. So yeah, I mean, I never thought of it as soloist in that way. It just for me, like I said, I was always a Strat guy. Something about this shape makes me feel good looking at it. And just one thing that needs to be said that I know I haven't said today at all is one of my biggest pet peeves about guitars is the headstock shape. And up until I saw Jackson guitars, to me there were only two good headstock shapes, Fender and Gibson. And when I say Fender, I didn't even like the Tele headstock. I still don't like it. I only like the big Strat headstock. And Jackson comes along and came out with who knew at the time that it was going to become the headstock of heavy metal, the pointy guitars thing. But I mean, that headstock is that's a killer headstock.
Fantastic. Good point. How do you run your Jacksons like on stage? What's your current live rig? How do you get your sound? What's this?
Too much for me to explain. I could give you the basics. From guitar, and then I know I'm on a Shure wireless. Excuse me. I'm on a Shure wireless. I've got some Fortin noise gates that I run, the Fortin Zool noise gate, which I'm running one in front of effects pedals and another one through the effects loop of the EVH 5150 EL34 heads. I'm running two of those 100-watt heads into two cabinets because I really don't need more cabinets. I used to think even on a big giant festival stage I needed more cabinets, but I don't. One head into one cabinet to me is really just what sounds the best. I always hated the way top cabinets in a stack sounded anyway. I would always unplug them. So two heads, two cabinets. I got a couple of effects running. I've got like an MXR phaser. Only when I run my clean tone. When my tech switches me over to channel 1, a couple of places in the set. So there's a phaser in there, a little bit of a delay, which I think is a One Control delay. One Control is a Japanese company that I use their switchers and stuff. That's the stuff I don't know too much about. My tech does all that crap. I've got the Game Changer plasma pedal, which I love kicking in once in a while. Just, it sounds like you're running literally high voltage through your amp. What else am I running in my signal chain? I have a wah. I've got a wah, the Kirk Hammett Dunlop wah out front.
Yeah, perfect. And you must have bigger strings to Darios, I imagine. But
The Dario strings, yeah, mono straps.
what's the gauge though? For to get the chunky sound and get the feel, you probably don't want the most feathery strings.
Well, I went through this phase. In the 80s, it was 9 to 42. That's all I ever used. But we were tuned standard all the time. When we started doing things in drop tuning, I quickly realized I didn't know. But you'd be in the studio with a drop D, and every time you hit a chord, you're banging it out of tune, so you got to like play super light. And heavier gauge strings will fix that. Okay. So, then maybe start playing with a 46 or a 50, for drop tunings. Then it gets to the 90s, and I started, like, at some point, I went full Malcolm, and I literally was playing, like, 12 to 60. Just like, I'm going to play the heaviest strings, and I'm never going to go out of tune. And at the same time, it was turning my hands into, like, raw meat because those strings aren't made for thrash metal. And also, the sound wasn't as good. The heavier string, you may get some more bottom end, but a lot of the edge and the punch was lost compared to the lighter strings. So at some point I realized not only am I physically hurting myself playing on these things, the tone's not as good. And at some point I kind of settled on a happy medium for me was 10 to 50, and I think I used that for a really long time. And then just not too long ago, it was actually 2 years ago, so 2020, I got asked to be in Mr. Bungle and play on the new Mr. Bungle album. And it was very much a record where they wanted my exact tone, like from 85, 86. So I had my same Rhodes from then, and my Marshall and my TC Electronic booster distortion, and I put 9 to 42 back on the guitar and completely like recreated that tone, and it was the exact sound, and that's the pretty much the tone I was playing with on the Mr. Bungle record. And I love those 9 to 42s, but I do play I have a very heavy right hand, and especially if I'm anything that's, where I'm not having to pick like this, or I'm not just down picking. If I'm playing chords, I'm playing chords. I dig in. So, I don't want it to sound wow all night long. I don't want to be banging E chords out of tune. So 10 to 50 is generally pretty safe for me, where I'm not going to sound like I'm out of tune all night.
Do you use a small pick or a big pick, or just like that? Cool, man.
D'Addario, like 88s.
Matches the guitar perfectly.
I know, I just noticed that before.
Now, you play some of the wildest crowds that any of us could ever imagine playing for. Can you think of any, like, just over-the-top Spinal Tap kind of moments that even in that scenario, some shit happened that was so crazy or so funny on stage at a concert or something, or even backstage, or I don't know. What are some highlights of crazy guitar moments?
I could tell you the weirdest thing I ever saw on stage when we played Castle Donington Festival in '87. It was the first time we ever played an outdoor festival. It was in England, and 80,000 people are going to be there. And we had heard about Doningtons of years past before that, where people come to the show and they fill like these 2-liter bottles with their drink of choice, and when they're finished with it, now it's empty, so then they have something to pee in, and then they throw the bottles of pee eventually at the stage when they're full. This is worse than that. This is we luckily didn't get any pee bottles thrown at us that day. I guess maybe that was more if they don't like you. At some point during the show, there was a pig's head on the stage, and like a pig's head, like a fucking head, right? And I thought about it after the fact, like, all right, like the commitment that it took for somebody. First of all, they had to sneak that thing in, right? They had to carry this thing around with them, and then it's not like the stage is just right there. I mean, this thing looked like it had some weight to it. So how the hell did they get it? Even if they were right in the front, from that barricade to the stage was just like really, really high. It would have taken like a pro baseball player to be able to make this throw. Yeah, or they had some type of catapult going on, or like, I still think about it to this day.
A catapult would be pretty metal, but still.
How the pig's head ended up on stage. And I've talked about it in interviews before, and I said, if anyone ever reads this or hears this and they know who did that, nobody's ever contacted me. I don't know that anyone wants to take credit. I would take credit if I did it.
It's like a cat. They bring you an offering.
Yes.
I don't want that. But what separates a typically good Anthrax show from one of your fucking just great shows? What musically or sound wise or crowd wise, what makes the difference in just a transcendent show? What would that be like?
I mean, for me, it's I'm very much in a zone when I get on stage. There's not much that penetrates, except for the crowd. Like, I'm not one to be too bothered by technical issues, of course, unless it's my guitar isn't on. But if the monitors or something is weird or whatever, all I need is a snare drum. If I could keep time, if I could play in time, and that's all I need. Literally, if I just have Charlie's snare, I could do my show. Even if I can't hear the guitar, I could still. It wouldn't be easy, but I could still do it. So generally, that kind of stuff I learned a long time ago. I can't let this shit bother me, because if I let every technical issue bother me, I'm gonna hate every show, So, but the crowd, some nights. I mean, we're lucky. Is the type of music we play. I feel like is the best audiences in the world because they're the craziest, they're the loudest, they're the most physical. And I don't mean just Anthrax, but our genre, the whole genre. It's just an amazingly passionate audience, and we're very lucky to have that in front of us. So even the nicest crowd at a metal show is still, for most other genres of music, people would be like, "Oh my God," So the bar is already here, and then you play in South America, or you play in Glasgow, or you play in Italy, or you play in Athens, or you play in Melbourne, Australia, or you play in Osaka, or I'm just naming off, you play in Chicago, or just naming off a bunch of cities that over the years have just generally, things are just above and beyond what, like, just unbelievable, especially South America. Talk to any metal band, they will tell you it's the best crowd in the world. Everything. Singing not only the words to your songs, but singing the guitar solos and singing the melodies and singing and the physicality and the mosh pits and the everything, the intensity of it, the volume. They're louder than the band. The cliche, come on, louder. It's like, no, I can't hear anything. I can only hear them, and they're not in time.
How many Jacksons do you bring on the road, like on this tour coming up?
I wish I could be like Rick Nielsen and have like 50 guitars with me, but my tech would kill me. I'll bring 7, probably. I think 7, and mainly because it's just tunings. There's 3 different tunings in the set, so I like to have a main and a backup for each tuning, and then one dedicated to the dressing room for warming up.
What are those tunings?
Standard E-flat and E-flat with drop C-sharp.
Right, and then last question, any plans of a 14-fret new Soloist?
Could be. Yeah, I still have that one. And just a little aside on that, people are always like, oh yeah, that's funny because you don't play solos, you never use it. But I used that fretless section on Bring the Noise. I'm playing boop. I'm just sliding from here. I'm sliding up on this.
Did you record that on that guitar?
Yeah, totally. So it's absolutely functional.
You're getting like some Terminator X sound.
Exactly. I was years before Tom Morello. I'm
True right there. Well, thanks for talking. That was great. Thanks, Scott.